Okay, order of operations. These operations, there's 6 of them, and using them in order will give you the right answer every time. All right, so the first thing you need to do is parentheses. Okay, and I already filled this in for you. Okay, parentheses. Next, we evaluate exponents. So exponents are like, right here would be an exponent in example 1. Okay. Next, after that, we evaluate problems using multiplication and division from left to right. So multiplication and division, it's like they're married, okay? And we have to do both of them, but we always start left to right. And I'll show an example of why you need to do that. So for example, 10 divided by 5 times 2. Okay, so if you were to do the multiplication, I know in PEMDAS you would say, oh, first parentheses, second exponents, third multiplication. Sorry, it's late. Anyways, if you were thinking, okay, I'm going to do these multiplication first, that would end up giving you 10 divided by 5 times 2, which is 10, which gives you 1. All right? But the way you need to make sure you do this is left to right. Okay, multiplication and division. So first, just so happens that division is first. That's okay. This gives us 2, and then we'd multiply it by what we have left, which is 2, gives us 4. Okay, and that gives you the correct answer. All right, so make sure you do that left to right. Okay, here's some examples. I'm going to go over these. I may go a little faster than what we do in class, but you can always slow it down with the speed of the video in YouTube, or you can come and talk to me, okay? So here, first thing we need to do is parentheses. Okay, the parenthesis is right here. We want to evaluate what's inside. So that would give us, we still have the 3 times, and then we want to evaluate what's in the parenthesis. That gives us 5 squared plus 4. Next we do exponents. All right, so that is this part, 5 squared. So we get 3 times 5 squared is the same as 5 times 5, which is 25. So we put 25 plus 4. Next we do multiplication and division, left to right. So all we have is multiplication. That gives us 75 plus 4. And then we do addition, subtraction. Okay, and you can do it the same left to right. So that would give us 79. Okay, so I kind of like these 4 steps to be able to do PEMDAS. Okay, let's do it again with the next one. Okay, first we have parentheses. All right, we have 1 parenthesis here, and that's it. So let's evaluate that. We have 3 squared still times 7 minus 4 is 3 plus 6 squared divided by 3. Okay, next we have exponents. So we have, here's an exponent and here's an exponent. So we would evaluate 3 squared, which is 3 times 3, which is 9 times 3, plus 6 squared is 6 times 6, which is 36, divided by 3. Next we have multiplication and division, left to right. So here's 1. Here's another thing we need to evaluate. So 9 times 3 is 27, plus 36 divided by 3 gives us 12. Okay? Then after that we do addition, subtraction. All we have is this adding the 27 to 12, which gives us 39. Okay? So I would suggest writing down these 4 steps as you go through the PEMDAS, and that will help you immensely, okay? So for example 1, there's A, B, C, D, E, F. I would like you to pause and do these problems, okay? And then you can check. All right? All right, here we go. So number 1, we do parentheses. So we leave these all the same and write all this out every time. That way you don't have mistakes. 10 minus 6 is 4. Now we're going to do exponents. We don't have any. Okay, so we're going to go and do multiplication, division, left to right. So we'll do 4 divided by 2, which is 2, plus 5 times 4 is 20. And then we do our addition, subtraction, gives us 22. Next, parentheses. All right, here we have a parenthesis inside of a parenthesis. Okay, so when we do a parenthesis, we want to evaluate what's in this parenthesis. All right, so we basically, every parenthesis, we start a whole new PEMDAS. Okay, so now we want to check in that parenthesis, do we have a parenthesis? We do. So we're going to evaluate that. And then we do PEMDAS on what's inside. Well, all we have is addition. Sorry. Okay, so we got 6. 32 minus 2 plus 3 is 5 squared. Okay. Now that we have that parenthesis done, we're going to do our big parenthesis. Okay. So we're going to start and say exponents. All right, well, we have one exponent. We'll rewrite all of this again. We have 5 squared, which is 25. Okay, we're still doing what's in that parenthesis, multiplication, division. Okay, we don't have any. And then addition, subtraction. Okay, so we're just still looking at what's in the parentheses. So we get 6 times 32 minus 25, and that gives us 7. All right, so now that that parenthesis is done, you could start again with PEMDAS to make sure you're not missing anything, but all you really have here is 6 times 7. So we'd multiply and get 42. Okay. All right. Next page. All right. All right. Whenever we have a fraction, we need to evaluate the top, which is called the numerator, okay, and the bottom, which is called the denominator, separately. Okay, so we want to evaluate the top, and then we want to evaluate the bottom, and then we can take care of that fraction. Okay, so for this one, we're just going to focus on the top. I kind of like to say, whenever we have fractions, this is almost like we have a parenthesis and a parenthesis on the bottom, and we need to evaluate those first before we can do anything else. So here, when we look at the top, we're going to do PEMDAS, parenthesis, exponents. Okay, first exponent would be 2 squared, which is 4. And then we do the same at the bottom. We don't have any exponents or multiplication or division. We have addition, so we can add 15 and 9. That would give us 24. Okay, and then we can evaluate the top. Again, that gives us 3 over 24. And then you need to make sure that you reduce your fraction. Simplify. Okay, so how we can simplify that is we can realize that that we can divide the top and bottom by 3. Okay, so we could divide that by 3, we could divide that by 3, and that would end up giving us 1/8. Okay? All right, next, PEMDAS again, parentheses. Okay, so we'd evaluate what's in the parentheses. 3 times 4 squared. So that parentheses already simplified. And then we're going to evaluate what's in here. So we have 2 plus, and we want to do exponents first. So we'll do that first. 2 to the third, that is the same as 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Okay. And then we would want to do exponents. So we get 3 times 16 minus 2 plus 8. I guess we still need to evaluate that, which, well, why don't we just do that right now? 2 plus 8 gives us 10. Okay, and then we're going to do multiplication division. That gives us 42 minus 10, and that gives us, 48 minus 10 over 30, or what gives us 38. Okay, so that would be our answer when we subtract 10 from there. Okay, and one thing with these, leave these as a fraction. Leave as a fraction. Okay. Okay, these ones, all you need to do for these is, we have this expression, and that's a little scary, but they tell us what x, y, and z are. All we need to do is plug in values. Okay? So here we'd plug that in. We still have this 5 plus x, which is 6, times y, which is 4. Okay, whenever we have variables next to each other, we're basically, and what we're doing is we're multiplying them. And then we're going to divide it by z, which is 8. Okay, so again, we'll do PEMDAS. We don't have parentheses or exponents, so we'll do multiplication division. So we have 5 plus 6 times 4 divided by 8. Make sure we go from left to right. So we'll do 6 times 4 first. That gives us 24 divided by 8. And then we get 5 plus 24 divided by 8 gives us 3. And then we do our addition, subtraction, gives us 8. All right, evaluate this. Okay, one thing you need to know is that whenever you have a negative number, it needs to be in a parenthesis. Okay, so for example, this one we'll plug in our variables. A is 4 minus b squared. So since b is a -6, we need to put that in a parenthesis. Then we'll do subtract 5 times c, which is also negative, so we'll put in a -2. Now we do PEMDAS. Parentheses are already simplified. Exponents, so let's do exponents. We'll still have 3 times 4 minus, okay, -6 squared, right? So you may be tempted, you'll either get an answer of -36 or +36. But which one is correct? All right? You need to make sure that when we do a -6 squared, what we're really doing is multiplying -6 times a -6, which is equal to a +36. Negative times a negative is a positive. Okay? If you didn't have it in a parenthesis like this, then what you'd be getting is basically negative and then 6 squared would be 6 times 6. So there's a big difference in having that parenthesis versus not having that parenthesis. Okay? So when you do that, you'll end up getting a positive 36 squared minus 5 times negative 2. And then we'll do our multiplication division left to right. So that will give us 3 times 4 is 12. Oops, sorry. You're probably like, Mr. Warner. Okay, that shouldn't be there because we already evaluated that. Okay, and then we have our minus 36. Okay, here we have a negative 5 times a negative 2, which gives us a positive 10. And then just combine like terms. That will give us a negative 14. Okay, so hopefully you went over that and did that by yourself. Okay, so that was our first day. This was our second day. We went to finish this. Practice. Okay, forest fires, according to the California Department of Forestry, an average of 539.2 fires each year are started by burning debris. Okay, while campfires are responsible for an average of 129.1 each year. Okay, write an algebraic expression. Okay, so when we do this, basically we're going to take this information and put in, it says write an algebraic expression that represents the number of fires on average in that number of years for debris and C years for campfires. Okay, so I would kind of like to do this differently with how much you get paid with the job. But if you're not understanding this, come and ask me about that, and I can clarify it. But this way, basically, what we're saying is how many years. So we have an average of 539.2 fires a year because of debris. So if we multiply that by the number of years, that would give us the total of fires because of debris. All right, then we add that to 129.1 fires per year times by the number of years. Okay, and they say to be it, call it C. Okay, so that would be our expression. Using an expression, we can just plug in a certain number of years, and that will give us our total fires. Because that, I mean, if we put those together, that would be our total fires. Okay, so they want us to know how many fires there are in total in 5 years. So what we'd do is we would do 539.2 times 5 years plus 129.1 times 5 years. Okay, when we do this, we can, we need to evaluate these, and my understanding is that we're not supposed to use our calculators today, or for this unit. So I'll double check, but these things you should be able to do by hand. So for example, if we wanted to evaluate this part, we could write it as 539.2, and then we can multiply it by 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 1 is 46. Next we have 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 4 is 19. And then 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1 is 26. Okay, and then we do the other one the same. We do 129.1 times 5, and that gives us 5. 5 times 9 is 45. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14. And then 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. All right? So if we add those together, and again, we would probably want to do it like this, 2696.0 plus 645.5. Add those together. That gives us 5. Here we get 11. We get 14 and 13 and 3. Okay, so this would be the total number of fires. Next they ask is how many fires due to campfires only. Okay, and that's what is right here. So this would be the total for campfires. Okay. On average, I mean, if you were to, you'd probably want to round because you can't have how many total fires there would be. You can't have half, but that's on average. Okay. All right. Error analysis. Okay. I actually left this here. Let me just clear that out really quick. Okay. So basically, what we're talking about here is you and your friend are doing homework, and you decided to do them separately, and then we're going to compare. So you're looking at your friend's answers, and all they put was an answer. They didn't show their work. So we're going to go through the problem. This is the problem right here. This is answers, our friend's answers. Okay, and we want to see if they're the same. All right, so we want to do PEMDAS. P for parentheses, we don't have any. We have exponents, nope. So next we would do our multiplication, division, and all we have here is 3 times 4, which is 12. So 2 plus 12 minus 6. Then we do addition, subtraction. So here we could add I mean, if you did it all together, that's probably okay, but I'm going to break it up. So here we'd add that to be 14 minus 6. And then we would have 8. Okay, so they have the wrong answer, and we're going to figure out what they did wrong. So if you didn't do PEMDAS, what would you probably do first? I mean, I would probably, this is your friend, this is wrong. Okay, what I would probably do if I didn't know about PEMDAS is I'd probably do, let me rewrite this here. I would probably add this first, and then I would multiply that, and then that would give us the 14. Okay, so that is not wrong the way that they did it. Okay, your friend wants to add parentheses for a problem to make it work. Where would we need to put that parenthesis? Okay, well, what she did first is we would have to make it be that we did it first. And the first thing that you do is parentheses. So we'd need to put a parenthesis on what she did first, and that would end up giving us 14. Okay? 2, PEMDAS again, parenthesis. So here's our parenthesis. We need to evaluate that. So looking in that parenthesis, the first thing we can do is exponents. So that would give us 4 plus 6. Divided by 5 times 2. Okay, add those together because we're still working on that parenthesis before we move on to anything else. It gives us 10 divided by 5 times 2. Okay, now all we have left is a multiplication and division. And remember, left to right. Okay, so here we do 10 divided by 5, which is 2. We still have another 2. And that would give us 4. Okay, again, your friend got it wrong. All right, and I'm just going to tell you what they did wrong. Is they looked at this. Okay, so this is where we were. And they did PEMDAS, and they said, oh, multiplication first. That's what they're thinking, which is 10. And 10 divided by 10 is 1. So it's very similar. I think that's like the exact same thing I did before. Okay, so that is wrong. If you needed to get that to work, you would need to have that parenthesis to force that to go first. Okay. Next, I'm just going to do these problems rather than talking about what they did wrong. Okay. All right, so here parenthesis, a parenthesis in a parenthesis. So if we have a parenthesis inside, and then we do PEMDAS again, what's inside, we do a parenthesis again. So it would end up getting 5, and then 10 times 7 is 3 squared. Okay, and then we still need to evaluate the bracket that we have, the parenthesis. So that would be 3 squared, which is 9. So we got 5 times 9, and then we do our multiplication, which is 45. Okay, and what they did, I think, is they distributed that 5, which would be wrong. Okay, next, parentheses. Here's our first parenthesis. Let's evaluate that. We'll have 3 times 18 minus 3, which gives us 15. And then we have another parenthesis right here. 6 plus 4 is 10, divided by 2. Okay, next that we're done with our parentheses, we don't have exponents, so let's do our multiplication and division. That gives us 45 plus 5. And then we do our addition subtraction, which gives us 50. So there, your friend actually got the right answer. Okay, again, I mentioned this before, if we have a fraction, we need to evaluate the top and bottom separately before we try and divide or simplify the fraction. Okay, so here I'm just going to, I guess I'll just do it below. So just looking at the top, we have a parenthesis. We need to evaluate that exponent. So we'll get 6 squared is 36 minus 8. And then on the denominator, we still have another parenthesis. Evaluate that. 8 plus 2 times 2 squared is 4. Okay. Now for both top and bottom, we'd want to do our multiplication and division. Okay. For the top, we have multiplication, so that would give us 3 times 36, which is 72. We still have our minus 8. And then we have 8 plus 2 times 4, which is 8. And then top and bottom, we would make sure we do addition, subtraction. Okay, so 72 minus 8 gives us 64. And then on the bottom, we got 16. Okay, and then we need to make sure we reduce the fraction. All right, so how many times does 16 go into 24? If you're not sure, you could realize, oh, well, something else goes into 64. Perhaps you would want to try divide 8, top and bottom. Just in case. I mean, I know that 8 times 8 is 64. And 16 divided by 8 is 2. Okay? But then we can still reduce. Okay? And that would end up giving us 4. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And you don't have to go from this step to this step if you knew that you could go 16 into both. Okay, I'm just trying to simplify it a little bit. All right, so that's everything. If you have any questions, let me know. And let me know if you like this video, if you want me to do more.